Leadership is not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about alignment, awareness, heart, and grit. I'm Tammy Ebright, leadership strategist, and this is Unleash Your Amazing Leadership. Join me as I chat with leaders who are evolving, growing, and creating real impact on purpose. Each week, you'll hear stories that inspire, challenge, and remind you of who you are. Let's dive in.
Okay, welcome back to Unleash Your Amazing Leadership. Today, my special guest is Joey Putnam. Joey is an executive leader who is passionate about building structure, people, and relationships. His background includes leading diverse teams, cultivating relationships, supporting change, and creating learning cultures. Now, I was introduced to Joey several years ago through a mutual friend and have gotten to know him over these years. And it is really my pleasure to welcome him as my guest today. So welcome, Joey.
Thank you so much. Truly excited to be here and just blessed for the opportunity. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. Now, you are a father of triplets. Can you not even imagine? How has parenting influence the way that you approach leadership?
The first thing from that perspective is I learned that God has a sense of humor, and you've got to be flexible in things. My wife and I, we had a plan. Let's start with one and see how it goes. With three kids there at one time, you also learn that there's no man-to-man coverage. There's two of us and three of them. When you think about pivoting just in how you approach and how you plan, we planned and then plans changed. And as leaders, we make plans all the time and plans change all the time. And it's just understanding that's going to happen and being flexible and ready for that. I don't know that we were entirely ready for that. So that did teach us both a lesson in readiness. It also taught us that, help is there and use it. We had an amazing church that just kind of wrapped their arms around us through the entire process, and it was amazing. But that also taught me that there's help if you collaborate, if you work with other people, particularly the people that want to work with you. It really gives you an opportunity to be better and reduce your stress. And I'd say probably the last thing from a leadership perspective is kind of that individual leader and what I can do. I learned I can do harder things than I thought. A lot of times you learn that because you don't have a choice. People would look at us and say, hey, wow, kind of like you said, triplets, gosh, how do you do it? I'm like, well, I don't have a choice. I can't look at my kids and go, hey, you know what? I can only do two today. So, that third one, you don't get to eat today. You don't get any attention. There was no choice. But I learned that I can do hard things and I can step into that.
I love that. It taught you early on the pivot, right? Pivot
Yes.
From a vision of one to a vision of three. And I'm sure that has been a huge blessing for you over these years.
They're amazing kids, and they are all out, college degreed adults and doing their thing. I've got one married, and just truly a blessing to us, and hopefully a blessing to other people.
Yeah, I'm sure they are from knowing you. So you lead in a remote environment. What has been the biggest lessons about building trust, culture, and connection when you don't see people every day?
Yeah, it can really be difficult, particularly if you begin to feel disconnected. And probably the last several roles I have been in a remote environment, and maybe not necessarily 100% remote, but leading people that are not where I am, even to that point of being led by managers that are not where I am. And that takes a special level of intentionality on that. It's interesting when you say, well, how do you lead them when you don't see them every day? That's one of the pieces that I try to ensure that I do. I try and see them every day. And sometimes seeing them may just be that we're having a text chat or a Teams chat or getting on camera with them, just to be able to see them face to face and have that visual piece. But I try to connect every day with them because it's important to have that connection. And when you're remote, they're remote, everybody's remote, you can very quickly feel isolated. I don't want the folks that I'm working with to feel that way, because at that point they're not going to be at their best. And it's not just business. It can be personal. Reaching out, asking them what's going on in their lives, what's happening. When things are happening, just checking in with them and seeing. Was it John Maxwell that said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yes.
And I have this great team, and I do care about them, and I care what's going on with them, not just while they're at work. They're 8 hours a day. I care what's going on with them, and I want them to know that I care, because I do.
Yes. Yeah, I think that feeling supported, feeling connected by your leader is an important thing that not every leader does. And so I like how you said that, how you really focus on not necessarily just, their role and what they're doing, but understanding, learning about them, finding out what's going in their life so that you can support them and in wherever they need and kind of wherever they're at.
Yeah. And they're amazing people. I want to learn more about them. I want that relationship to deepen. And we're working together. Yeah. We've got an opportunity for a relationship. Let's take that opportunity. And, again, you and I've known each other for several years.
Mm-hmm.
It's an opportunity to make relationships that matter, make relationships that last.
Yes. Yes.
And it's also fun. I mean, we have a lot of fun, and our team, we spend a little bit too much time at work to not have some fun. And that's an important aspect of engaging and connecting. Every time you get a ping, you don't think, oh gosh, what now? Okay, it's a stupid meme. Awesome.
Yes. Having fun at work is not overrated. So we have spoken about leadership being like a pendulum swing. How do you recognize you or your team members are at one extreme, and what does it take to bring things back to center?
I don't always look at the extremes on either side. I look at the beat of the pendulum, and I think what my wife would call an unfortunate clock hobby. I do like old clocks, and I like finding them and kind of getting them back to where they're nice and running, and they're just amazing mechanical pieces. And I probably have too many of them in my house, but particularly pendulum clocks, they will get out of beat. And rather than just that nice even tick tock that you get, they're out of beat. It's just swinging one way more than the other. And if that continues, it impacts how well the mechanism runs. If it continues, eventually the clock's going to stop. And if I look at, hey, we have a team, we have a scenario, we have an organization. If it's out of beat, then we've got to do something to get it back into beat so that everything runs the way it's supposed to. And there's a couple of ways you can do that with clocks. Sometimes it's just a matter of leveling the clock. You actually take the whole thing and change the whole perspective on it, and it gets you back into beat. So sometimes it's changing the whole perspective to get it back into beat. Sometimes you're just tweaking or bending little parts inside. So sometimes if you've got a scenario where you're getting that out of beat or the pendulum swinging too far one way, some tweaks on the parts, maybe individuals, maybe processes, helps get a team back into beat. Some newer clock mechanisms actually have self-writing mechanisms. And this is one of those things that I learned from a clock mentor. I was having trouble getting one in, and he said, well, that clock's only 20 years old. It's probably got a self-righting mechanism. I was like, it's got a what? I didn't know that was a thing. But to get it to work, you have to pull the pendulum way over to one side and do a very wide swing. And sometimes it takes a wide swing, an adjustment, hey, we've got to make a radical change or a radical event to get that wide swing so that when that event is over, you've settled into a regular beat. And that may be organizationally, an organizational change. It could be role changes. It could be someone leaving the organization, someone joining the organization that provides that wide swing or that radical shift in the team that brings the opportunity to come back to an even beat. And I look at things oddly through that clock lens now, particularly when you hear, whether it's politically or situationally in media, oh, the pendulum has swung way over here. We've got these wide pendulum swings. I'm like, if you get a wide pendulum swing, if it's self-righting, we're good. It'll come back into beat and we'll be fine.
I feel like that is almost like the 21-year-old that you need to do that, or the 20-year-old clock is almost the generational changes, the boomers, the X's, the millennials, the Gen Z that gets a lot of challenging. People see them as a challenging time, but it almost to me feels like that wide swing that needs to happen with that newer generation. That's what came to my mind. What do you think?
When you think about the generational pieces, some of my newer clocks, I can do that with.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a couple of clocks that are over 100 years old. They run extremely well. But when they're a little out, that's where you've got to go inside and start making the tweaks. And it takes a little bit more intentionality, a little bit more work to get that to run well. You may have more established older teams, people that have more tenure. Sometimes that takes a little bit more intentionality to move that direction and get back to a center. With the younger folks, they're used to some of this change. You can give them a wide swing, and
yes,
they're woohoo, and then all of a sudden they're back in beat.
I love that. Have you ever had a leader who was challenging to work under, and how did this experience shape how you lead?
I have been blessed with just some amazing leaders in my career, and people that I have had the opportunity to learn a tremendous amount from, and from their leadership and their mentorship, and having those relationships that last. I've had a couple of leaders that have not been as amazing. I have still had the opportunity to learn from those situations and learn from their leadership style. It's looking at that leadership style and saying, wow, okay, that didn't feel good at all. I never want anybody to feel that way with my team.
Yes.
It may be looking at, hey, we're not being successful because of whatever behavior that's coming from the leader. And we're not feeling that success. We're not feeling that engagement and that value. Okay, that's a good learning opportunity. What are those behaviors? How are those landing? How are they impacting? What are the results of that? And I've learned from that. So there's a tremendous amount that can be learned when you have amazing leaders. And I love my amazing leaders, and I have great relationships with past leaders. So much so that, my most recent leader, when I was talking about a new role, rather than, trying to hold on. She's like, this is such a great opportunity. You need to take this. That's hard,
Yeah.
and but I learn from that. I look at that, and even in my new role here, one of the folks on the team and been here for a long time, I got this opportunity, and I looked at it. I'm like, this is better for your family.
Mm,
You need to take this.
I think that is such a great perspective, because I know that I've heard from leaders like, why would you train people and then they're just going to leave? But really, I think that if you're training them and you're empowering them, and also looking at things as what is best for that person and their family, that it's almost like you can then attract more people that you can help to empower and to grow. And there's no, to me, that saying that is like a lack mentality. If, hey, if I train them and they leave, then what? I've wasted all this money. But is it really a waste to support somebody and help them grow in their career? Because I feel like you're going to receive so much more accolades, and it's going to be such a more supportive culture where people are not going to be afraid to share with you and ask you for your guidance. And I just love the impact that I've seen from you and from people that I know that have worked with you along the way. So what do you think about that whenever leaders say, don't train them because they might, and we're not going to train them because they might leave?
Yeah, I have two thoughts on that. And the first one is, hey, if I train them and develop them and pour into them and they leave and they go somewhere and they do something amazing, great. So yeah, I'm going to have to pivot. That goes back to our pivot conversation. Well, okay, now I've got to pivot. Now I've got to rebuild. Now I've got to do something else. But if I'm the leader, that's my job, is to continue to lead regardless of the scenario. If I help somebody do something amazing, that's winning to me.
Yes.
I've done a good thing. Yay. And if that creates a scenario, okay, then we'll deal with that scenario. My second thought on that, and I've seen this several places before, that people say, what happens if we train these people and they leave? And we're like, well, what happens if you don't train them and they stay? Okay, well, I guess you get what you expect at that point.
Yes. So looking back on your leadership journey, what's one piece of advice that you'd give to your younger self when you were stepping into your first leadership role?
I have over the years gone through, and you pick up pieces here and there, and I've put three things together that I would love to give to my younger self. And that is, be humble, be grateful, and give grace. And that is, be humble, because there is always somebody out there, bigger, better, faster, smarter, stronger. Yeah, there's always going to be that somebody that's out there that's ahead of you. That's okay, because that is an opportunity to learn from them. Be grateful, particularly when you are put in a leadership position. Be grateful for that opportunity. Be grateful for what's entrusted in you, and be grateful for the time that we live in right now, and that we have the opportunities and the things that we can do, and the methodologies and research and stuff that's at our disposal, so that we can continue to learn and get better. And lastly, give grace, because we are all human and we're all going to mess up at some point. And that little bit of grace to say, hey, yeah, you messed up, and yeah, we may have to, clean up some stuff that's broken on the floor now. That's okay. Let's learn from this and not do that again. I guess I got to the point where I was saying this enough, because I was saying it to myself a lot. Be humble, be grateful, give grace. Boy, that last one can be tough sometimes. Give grace. My kids have, I have a little picture on that goes near my desk, and it says, be humble, be grateful, give grace. And my kids gave me 1 year for, I think it was a Christmas present. I've seen it on one of my son's email signatures.
Aww.
And yeah, I was like, wow, hmm, I've done a thing. Uh, those three things. If I go back to myself at a younger age and say, hey, as you're stepping into this leader role, be humble, be grateful, and give grace, would have smoothed so many things that I learned by stubbing my toe
Mm,
rather than being able to, you know, continue to look ahead. I felt like I was looking down a lot. And
mm.
with that, you can look ahead and be confident.
Yes, I love that. I talk a lot about being grateful for things, and giving grace is also, I think, part of that. Being grateful for the things that we've gone through and then finding the lessons
Hmm.
outside of it and giving yourself grace even in the moment.
Yes.
So, what does sustainable leadership mean to you? And how do you make sure your team feels both challenged and supported as they grow?
I'll break that into two. Yeah, sustainable leadership to me is defined by the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you have a a sustainable relationship, and a solid, a good relationship that you're pouring into, the leadership is more natural. That I'm not having to be the leader, and whoever I'm leading doesn't have to be the led. Those roles may be organizational. Those roles may be, situational. But as a leader, if I'm building a relationship, then those roles become secondary to the relationship. And intent always comes before content. If folks don't understand the intent, they're not going to be ready to accept content.
Mm-hmm.
And you assume they start with positive intent, and the relationship always comes before business.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at, the relationship is what sustains. I'm not building relationships just because I'm a leader. I'm building relationships because I care, and I want to learn and grow. And I may not be that leader forever.
Mm-hmm.
I may be that. Heck, I may have folks that become my leader. Awesome. The relationship is still there. And to me, that's the key. As far as keeping the team engaged and keeping them looking forward, I again, I've had great teams in my past. I am blessed with just a super amazing team right now. That's I've got three folks that are just really putting their shoulders down and leaning in, and I love that, and I want them to own that. I want them to own their success. I want them to own their their challenges and their wins, and that they have the opportunity to step up. And even they may look to me, hey, what about this? And I've got my ideas, I've got my things, but I'm going to look at them and go, it's your program. What do you think we need to do?
Mm-hmm.
How do you want to lead this? And that ownership of that, to me, is what's really important in keeping them engaged and allowing them to really begin to step up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun to watch. It's fun to be a part of. And let's be honest, there's a lot of times, really, am I the best person to make that decision? Again, I'm in a newer role here, right at a year. I'm working with a lot of people that have been here for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Folks on my team have been here a long time. Am I really the person that knows best? There are times, you know this, you got this, and quite honestly, I don't. So yeah, let's work together on this. But really, this is you. You're the expert on this,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a very freeing opportunity. Now there is structure, and we want to make sure we put the appropriate structure and rigor around that. And but there's freedom in that structure. We set that structure, and now feel free to move about within your parameters and make your magic happen.
So what I heard you say is assume positive intent, and I think that is so powerful. Empower them through collaboration, which leads to them owning ownership, and then stepping up into their greater potential and really owning their success.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's I love the opportunity to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to having fun. If they're feeling valued and successful and they're engaged and they have relationship and purpose and they're feeling satisfied, we can have fun.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So what does unleash your amazing leadership mean to you?
I've told my kids for years, and as they're going through each stage in their life, I tell them all the time, God has an amazing plan for you.
Mm-hmm.
God has an amazing plan for you. And I truly feel God has an amazing plan for all of us. And it's my opportunity to step into that plan and step into that amazing. So when I think about how do I, was unleash amazing, how do I unleash my amazing? If I focus on my faith and know that there's a plan in that for me to be amazing, that unleashes me to live in to that plan. If I know there's a plan, maybe it's not now, maybe it's out there. And one of the reasons why I tell my kids, you're young, you've got this amazing plan out there.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on your faith. That will unleash your amazing. And as I thought through that, I was like, that really is the opportunity that we have.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I like that. And I like that what you said about, that we are each unique, and God has a plan for each of us to utilize our uniqueness. I think that you still have to be humble, grateful, and give grace
Yeah.
as you are implementing that plan, and you're finding your way.
Yeah. It's I can't be my plan, because it's my plan, then that humility goes out the window, grace takes a dive, and I lose the gratitude in that. Um, when I look at something that is bigger than me, something that is better than me, that's where I can be humble, I can be grateful, I can give grace, but I can also live into a plan that allows me to unleash and be amazing.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your time with me today. I always enjoy our conversations.
It is certainly a pleasure. I get you're right. I love the time that we have to chat together. Fun to do it in this format, and excited about that. And truly grateful for the opportunity and the time to be with you.
I will be talking to you soon. And for everybody else, how would they reach out to you if they wanted to connect with you?
Anyone wants to connect with me, I am a LinkedIn user. I'm on LinkedIn several times a week. It's the way that that's the primary tool I have to continue to connect with people. I don't do much other social media, but LinkedIn stays with me.
Perfect. I will plan on talking to you again soon. Have an amazing day.
Thank you so much. You too.
Thanks for listening to Unleash Your Amazing Leadership. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss what's next. Want more support or curious about working together? Visit unleashyyouramazing.com to explore coaching, workshops, and ways to connect. Until next time, keep showing up and unleashing your amazing.